Hi everyone, my name is Maddie, welcome back to my channel and welcome to this video which will be the Boujee Booktuber tag. So this is a tag that I think went around Booktube maybe about a year ago, but obviously I didn't have a Booktube channel back then and I definitely was not making videos, but I always thought it looked like so much fun, so I've just decided I'm gonna do it anyway. This was originally created by Olive at A Book Olive, and obviously she'll be linked down below as will the original video. Like, I've absolutely not been tagged in this at all, and I just want to do it. It looks fun. I love talking about buying books because I'm very much of the opinion that buying books and reading books are almost two different hobbies, and I definitely do both. As you can see, I like collecting books. I will buy books for more than just the reason of reading them. Obviously, I wouldn't buy a book that I never intend to read, but as I said, I have multiple editions of books. I just enjoy buying books, so why not do it? So there are 10 questions plus a bonus, so I'm just going to get straight into it and answer the first question. So the first question is, what is your average monthly budget for buying books? And I don't actually have a budget. I try to be aware of what I'm spending, obviously, but I don't have a specific budget when it comes to books. I think mainly because some months I will completely just buy them all secondhand and therefore cheap, and sometimes I'll be having to get new ones, and so it doesn't make sense for me to have a set budget. However, I do try, although I've definitely been failing recently, to buy less books than I read. So say I'm reading 10 books in a month, I will try and make sure I'm buying less than that, just so that overall my TBR isn't growing, because for many, many years my TBR has definitely been increasing quicker than I can get through it, and it's starting to get to the point where I feel like I'll never get through everything I've read, and that may be the case. I may never read everything, but I wanted to give myself more of a chance of reading most of the books. So yeah, that's what I'm trying to do at the moment, just making sure I buy less books than I read, even though I've definitely failed on that the last couple of months. The next question is, what is the most you've ever spent in a bookstore? I don't actually know what the most I've spent in like one go is, and I guess it kind of depends. So if I'm thinking like Waterstones or Foyles or something like that, I have probably spent about £60 or £70 before, because that'll be when I'm buying maybe 5 new release books. They're all hardbacks, then it can quite easily rack up quite quickly, but I don't do that very often. I have once spent over £100 at one go, though that wasn't in a bookstore, that was online when I graduated uni. I got a bit overexcited and it had just been my birthday as well, so I went on a bit of a shopping spree and I went to, you know, Abe Books and Book Depository and I think some on Amazon as well, and just bought myself quite a lot of books in one go, but I don't regret that in the slightest. I hadn't bought more than like one book at a time in a really long time, so it was a lot of fun just doing one big sort of splurge. But I don't do that very often because I really enjoy the process of buying books. I try not to buy too many at once so that I can sort of eke it out, so I can buy like one every week or something instead of just one lot maybe every month. So I rarely spend much at a time, like maybe 20 odd quid if I'm getting 2 books, but rarely more than that. The next question is, are you willing to pay full price for a new release, or do you wait for a coupon or for it to go on sale? I am absolutely happy to pay full price. I do always look around, so I'll go to like eBay because they often sell a lot of new books, and Amazon and Book Depository and Waterstone and Foyles, and I will try and find where has it cheapest, as I'm not, you know, completely endless money, but I am very happy to pay the full price if it's a book I'm really anticipating. If it's one I'm less bothered about, I normally wait 6 months to a year, especially if it's not out in paperback originally, and I will wait to see if the price drops a bit. But if I need to read it for a book club, or if lots of people are talking about it and I'm intrigued, or it's just one I really want to read, I will probably have had it on pre-order from Waterstones for months before it's come out anyway. So yes, I am very happy to pay full price. Also because just personally, I know it doesn't make that much difference whether you get it on sale or not, but I like feeling like I'm supporting the authors, and I also know that first week sales make a huge difference to authors, and so if I can afford to pre-order a book and it's a book I really want to read and will want to read soon after its release, I'm going to try and pre-order it. But obviously you're supporting the author whenever you get their book, so any way's great. I just personally like trying to pre-order when I can. The next question is a really interesting one, and it's, would you rather buy one expensive new book or multiple used books that are cheaper? And this for me really depends. Like, obviously I would prefer to get multiple for the same price, but because I often read new releases, that's not really a possibility. I much more care about what book I'm buying. So yes, in principle, I would like to get more cheaper, even if they're secondhand, as I personally don't mind secondhand books at all, as long as they're in relatively good condition. But a lot of the books that I want to buy are only accessible new, and especially at the moment, I don't really have the opportunity to go secondhand book shopping, And I'm not saying I've never found good things in secondhand shops. Lots of my favourite series that I own I've actually got secondhand. Like all of my Brandon Sanderson books are secondhand from charity shops, and you can find some really good books. But if there's a book I want to read right now, I'm going to buy it new because that's where I can get it to read it now. And I don't always want to wait 6 months or a year or who knows how long until I happen to stumble upon it in a charity shop. This is even more the case being in the UK because a lot of the books I read are published by American publishers and don't have UK publication. And so it's very, very rare for me to find those books in charity shops because nowhere near as many people are reading them, and so they don't get bought by people and donated to charity shops. And also, I will say, we don't have secondhand bookshops in quite the same way as a lot of the US, or the impression I've got from the US, which is where you can like take your books and sell them and then get store credit, and they're very much like big shops which sell new books and secondhand books. At least where I live, these secondhand bookstores are very much charity shops and they just take donations, and so they often prioritize the sort of books which a lot of people are going to want to read, which is genre fiction, so crime and thrillers and romance books and things, which are brilliant books, but not generally the sort of thing I tend to read. A lot of YA fantasy and contemporary, as well as adult literary fiction and adult fantasy, the sort of books I want don't often appear in charity shops, so however much I would love to get all of my books secondhand, cheaper, and get more for the same price, it's not always possible for the books I want to read. And my priority is always going to be getting the books I really want to read versus anything else. The next question is, what do you think is a reasonable price for a new hardback, paperback, and ebook? This is difficult. I think it depends on so many things. So I'm going to run through a few different things. So starting with hardbacks, a general adult hardback in the UK is about £17. And I think that's completely fair. That's what they've always been. I think that's okay. Some do go up into the 20s, especially special editions, and again, that's all right, but it's nicer when they're lower. A YA hardback can be sort of £14 or even £12 sometimes, which I think is really good because obviously generally younger people have less disposable income, if any income at all, because you're in school, you're in university, you're just trying to get by. So I think it's really good that the books tend to be a little bit cheaper so that people can have access to them. Paperbacks in the UK always run between £7 and £10. That's just always the price they are, adult or YA. And again, I think that's a pretty good price. It's not the cheapest, and the paperback isn't always actually accessible when the book first comes out, which means you are left to either get a hardback, which is more expensive, or just wait. But I do think it's an okay price. They're obviously expensive, but if you go to places like Amazon or Book Depository, you can often get them for around £5. So although it's not like really, really cheap, it's definitely accessible for most people to get hold of those books. So I think that's definitely a fair price, and just the general full price of £7 to £10 is also fine. Ebooks I struggle with. I have recently started reading ebooks. Prior to a few months ago, I didn't really read ebooks at all. I struggled with them, which I've now discovered was just because I was on my phone and I kept getting notifications and it's a small screen, so all I needed was a dedicated device to read on, which has made a lot of difference, though I still will always prefer a physical book. But the thing I struggle with ebook prices, I know in my head that it is the same book and the same amount of work has gone into it, and so it should be the same price or maybe like a fraction smaller just because it doesn't have the physical printing cost. But because I genuinely enjoy having a physical book and I like having it on my shelves after I've read it and I like the physicality of reading, I find it more difficult to spend large amounts of money on ebooks. I normally will not really pay more than maybe £4 to £5 on an ebook if I can avoid it. Like if I'm starting to pay more than that, I may as well just get the physical book because normally you can for that sort of price. But I do think it is very reasonable for ebooks to cost almost as much as the book because the same amount of effort went into writing them and editing them and getting publicity out there, so it is fair. But most of the ebooks I own, I think actually other than one book, I got for £2 or less. I wait for them to go on sale and I keep an eye out, and that's when I get them. Because it's just personally what I am more comfortable paying for ebooks, as I don't enjoy the reading experience quite as much and I don't get to keep the book on my shelves after. So that's just personally what I feel, but I do think it is completely reasonable for them to be more expensive than that. I just personally won't pay it. And also, just to sort of prove how much more I enjoy the physical reading experience to ebook, even if a book is like twice the price physically, if it's a book I think I'm going to love, I will still buy the physical copy. So a recent example of this is Wolfsong by TJ Klune. The ebook for that was like £2 or £3 and the physical copy was £12. But because I love TJ Klune and I love his books, also it's self-pub, and self-pub books are often really nice physically, I chose to buy the physical book. So I could have saved a lot of money, but sometimes it's worth it for me to buy the physical book instead of an ebook. The next question is a signed book worth more to you, and is a first edition worth more to you? So signed books I personally really like. I wouldn't pay much more for one unless it's from like an absolute favourite author. So often on the Waterstones website, I know this from pre-ordering so many books, the standard, say hardback if it's a new release, might be £12, which has been reduced from the recommended retail price, but a signed hardback will be at full recommended retail price, so maybe £14 to £15. And at that point I will normally pay that sort of amount. But if it was much more than that, then I probably wouldn't bother. Like, I know quite a lot of authors do virtual signings, which is really, really cool, but often they're based in America, and so with the shipping cost and everything, it ends up adding a lot to the price for me, and for me that's not worth it. I would prefer to get the book and then wait for hopefully one day being able to meet them in person and then getting it signed myself. So it adds a bit of value, but not much. However, I would say the books that I have signed do add a lot of value to me. I wouldn't necessarily have paid for them more, but like all my Erin Morgensterns are signed, all my Laini Taylors are signed, and to me that adds a lot of value of the book. Like, I would be 10 times less willing to part with that book now having got it signed than if it was just a standard edition I'd bought and had on my shelves for a while. But also I would never get rid of those books because they're my favourites. But the point still stands. The signature does add to the value of the book for me, but not necessarily monetarily, and not necessarily enough to make it worth it when I'm buying a book in the first place. And then in terms of first editions, they're cool. I don't really care about them. If I have a book that's a first edition and I find that, then I'll be like excited about it, but I'm not someone who seeks out first editions. So like with my favourite books, there may be a specific edition I want, but I wouldn't care about that edition being first edition or first printing. It will be if I think the book's pretty in that format that I would like to get hold of it. For example, with Laini Taylor, Strange the Dreamer, the first edition printing had blue edges. I would love to get that edition because it's one of the only editions I don't have, but I don't care because it's a first edition. I care because it has sprayed edges and it would look really cool and match my Muse of Nightmares. So yeah, I have a couple of first editions. I mean, I have quite a few, so obviously when I pre-order books, they tend to be first editions unless they're massive books with huge print runs and therefore multiple print runs before release. But I'm not bothered about them. I don't seek them out. It's a nice edition. It's not something I care about particularly. This next question is such an easy answer for me, and that is, what is your most valuable book, either monetarily or by sentimental value? And this is going to be solely sentimental, though I do think weirdly this could have monetary value, but that's not even slightly why I care about it. So my answer for this is my arc of Muse of Nightmares by Laini Taylor. This is the UK arc. It has sprayed edges. It's super floppy and lovely. And I was actually sent this arc by the publisher. This was back when I was doing Bookstagram, which I still do, but I took a while off. And I requested this arc on a bit of a whim. Like, Strange the Dreamer was one of my favourite books. I love the Daughter of Smoke and Bone trilogy, but I never in a million years thought the publisher would send me this arc. These were so sought after, and I was really new. I'd been doing Bookstagram for just a few months at the time, but I thought I'd send an email and see what happened, and I never heard back and I didn't think anything of it. Until I suddenly got a package from Hodder and Stoughton, and I could tell from the depth of the package that it was a very good chance it was this, and I was there trying so hard to not get my hopes up because I just knew it couldn't be. I opened the package and I full out screamed. I never in a million years expected to get this book, and I felt really bad because a lot of bigger bloggers didn't get this book, and for some reason I did, but I love it so much. This is one of my favourite series of all time. Laini Taylor is my favourite author, and the opportunity to read this early and just also having a big floppy paperback, which is my favourite thing, was phenomenal. And then I ended up unsurprisingly loving this book, especially the ending. For anyone who's read it and understands the significance, just, oh, I love it. I love it a lot. And oh, I cannot believe I have this. I have also since got it signed. I went to her signing in Waterstones in, I think, 2018 for the release of this book. And so it is signed by her. I'll actually include a picture here because I took all of my Laini Taylor books to that signing, and I think she thought I may have been insane, but she seemed to quite enjoy the giant stack of books that I have collected. But yes, there's no question that this to me is my most valuable book. The fact that I got sent it, the fact that it's signed, the fact I love this book so much, just, I can't believe I have this to this day. But I love it so much. And now just holding it, I want to reread the series. I feel like the next question is really going to show me up, and that is, will you pay more for a cover or edition you want? Yeah. Oh gosh, yeah, no, way more. Like regularly, there is a UK paperback available for like £7 and a US hardback available for like £18. But I prefer the cover, so I get the US hardback all the time, all the time. I love nice covers, and unfortunately I always like the US copies, which are more expensive and harder to get. So yeah, all the time. Literally, I'm trying to think. I mean, also, I am not above buying multiple copies, so if it's a book I'm not sure I will like, I will buy the cheaper version, and then if I love it, I will replace it with the more expensive version, and therefore end up paying twice to make sure I get the copy I like. So I'm awful for this. Like, just one example of this, although there are many, is the Darker Shade of Magic series by V. Schwab. I hadn't read this series yet when I bought these, and there are UK paperbacks in most charity shops for probably like £3. I got all three in the American hardback before I read it because I thought I would like it, and I wanted to make sure I had the covers I liked. So yeah, I'm awful for this. I will pay far more to get a cover I like. But it makes me happy, and as I've said, book buying for me is almost like a separate hobby and another hobby I love, so I don't feel particularly bad about it. And it's fun. I like getting covers that are pretty. It makes me happy. The next question is, what physical characteristics does a quality book have? And I'm not necessarily going to answer for quality, but I'm going to answer for what my perfect physical book has, and I actually have one that fits it pretty well, which is my Dark Vanessa. Number one, floppy paperback. That is top priority. Floppy paperback is the best kind of book. Number two, French flaps. These little things. I love them. They just make me really happy. And number three, the most controversial, deckled edges. I absolutely love deckled edges. I think they are so tactile and nice, and I love reading a book with them. Loads of people hate them, and I don't know why. People say it's hard to turn the page. I don't know if it's just me, but I always turn the page from the top, so I like grab the top and then turn it, so the deckled edge makes no difference. I don't know. That's my kind of perfect. The other thing I would add that I love is either foiling like this, or just some sort of sheen like this. You can see there. That just makes me really happy. I just like, yeah, there we go. Look at that shine. How can you not love that on a book? And then the one other thing I really like is, firstly, if you're having a naked hardback, obviously tons of foiling and pretty design, that always is great, but more so on a standard hardback when they have a design under the dust jacket. So this is Ninth House, which is pretty anyway, but then you take the dust jacket off and it has that, it has a really cool spine. Things like that I just love, and literally every hardback I own, the first thing I do is take the dust jacket off. Like, here we go, here's another one, Starless Sea. Look at this. Like, how can you not want that on your books? It's so, so stunning. And then an example that's not foiling but similar, a design under the dust jacket, God's Grave, well, the whole series of the UK hardbacks by J. Christoph. Just look at this. They're so cool. So yeah, a design under a hardback is another thing I love, but obviously my top choice is a floppy paperback, so something like that. But yeah, the physicality of a book is very important to me. It makes me really happy, so that is why I have such a long list of things I like on books. And then the final question, other than the bonus question, is if you won the lottery, what would you do that was bookish? And I would love to say that I'd buy loads of books and stuff, and I would, I'm sure, and I would buy some merch. I think one thing I'd probably do is try and complete some sort of book collections I have, like my Laini Taylor collection. There's definitely some books I don't have that are too expensive for me to justify getting. But actually the thing I would really like to do, and it's something I would actually love to do at some point in the future if I ever have enough money to do it, is every time I buy a book, buy 2 copies and either donate one to a charity shop or to a library or school or something. Because especially with YA books, I felt like my school library wasn't badly stocked, and I was at a very good school with a huge library compared to most places. And also my local library was really well stocked. But I've noticed in the last few years, my local library, especially for YA, has not kept up with the times at all. And a lot of the YA books I read, especially, are really not accessible in price to a lot of people. And so I would love to be able to donate them either to a charity shop for someone to go in and find it cheap, because I know that's the best feeling, like a week after a book comes out, if you happen to find it cheap in a charity shop, or similarly for a library, if they take donations. I don't know if they do in the UK. But yeah, I would love in some way to basically give access to brand new, either hardback or paperback, popular new releases as soon as they're out to someone who necessarily couldn't afford to buy it new. And so they can have access to it. It's just something that I would like to do, as I'm lucky enough to be able to buy books new for myself without having to think too hard about it. Like, if a book's coming out, I just buy it. Like, I obviously try and keep on top of what I'm buying, but I don't have to stress too much about not being able to afford a book I want. So I'd like to be able to help a few other people in getting hold of those kinds of books without having to worry about the cost. And then the bonus question, and I'm excited for this one, and that is, either in words or with pictures, describe your dream library. And I will describe it with words, but there'll be pictures flashing up on the screen because I spend too much time looking at library inspiration. One of my friends also sends me library inspiration pics because they're the best and they realise that that is what makes me happy. So they every so often will just send me a picture of a really pretty library and it brings me so much joy. But let's try and describe this. So number 1, white. That's the first thing. I love bright white shelves. I mean, you can see even just here, my furniture's white. My room in general has a lot of white elements. I love everything feeling really bright and really airy. So big windows, lots of light, lots of natural light, and yeah, definitely white shelves. It needs a library ladder because who doesn't want a library ladder in their house, honestly? And then what else? Definitely some comfy elements because you need to be able to, you know, sit there and read for a long time, but not too cluttered. I appreciate people who have like loads of cozy stuff and it feels really like homey, but I love the really bright airy feel, which requires quite a lot of space and not too much furniture. So like maybe a sofa, maybe a comfy chair, not too much else. I would organise my books similar to how I currently do. So some will be by colour, some won't. I wouldn't organise all my books by colours because I'm too pedantic about my series being kept together. But, you know, that kind of vibe, lots of really cool organisation. Plants, lots of plants. A dog, there needs to be a dog. That is a requirement. I don't know, I'm sure pictures would have been popping up of the kind of thing I like. I do like some really dark style ones, but I think if I was to sit and read in it every day, I would prefer a really bright place. And yeah, in case it wasn't evident, I've spent far too much time thinking about my ideal library, and I fully intend to have it one day. Somehow, I don't know how, but one day I will have it because I need it. But that is all the questions. So I'm not tagging too many people in this because obviously with it being tagged such a long time ago, I'm worried people have already done it, and also I don't know how current it really is. But I am tagging Rowan from Rowan Reads, India from What India Read, and obviously anyone else who wants to do it is more than welcome to, and I may tag a few extra people down in the description. Obviously Rowan and India will be linked down below. But that is it for this video. I had so much fun doing this. I love talking about buying books, and it's just been really interesting to actually discuss and think about some of these things. But that's it, so thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and comment down below some of your book buying habits. I am so intrigued to know other people's answers to these questions. All my other social media are linked down below in the description like always. Subscribe if you'd like to see more content from me, but bye, and I'll see you in the next one.